Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info. Playwright Kevin Fegan has had a 30-year career as a prolific writer, having written more than 50 stage plays to commission, as well as radio plays and drama serials, 10 published books of poetry, and storylines for Coronation Street. He currently has 4 theatre plays about to open with different companies, but when I spoke to him I asked him first of all to talk about The Ruck, which is produced by the Lawrence Batley Theatre in Huddersfield.
The Ruck is a play about girls rugby, which is inspired by Batley Bulldogs girls team. I was invited to write a play about rugby league around the Batley Bulldogs professional club. And, I said, yeah, that's great, but as long as I can decide where the play is. And then I went to see the girls train one evening and spoke to them afterwards. And I thought straight away, this is where the play is. This is the play I want to write.
So what was it about talking to them that gave you an idea that there was a play in it? What were those conversations?
I think there's several things. I think I think it's very much in the air at the moment, isn't it? Women in sport. Yeah. So there's a real sense of that. And I think what you got here was you got a girls' team in Batley who were UK champions for 4 years, and completely under the radar. And that needs celebrated. Yeah. But I also I wanted to explore in the piece what it's like growing up as a young woman in Batley, and how the rugby kind of helps those girls to deal with the normal rite of passage. As you grow older. Yeah, I mean these sorts of plays about teams or groups or voluntary organisations, they tend to be really good ways of getting people from many different backgrounds in the same room. So it sounds like that's what you found with this, is it? Yeah, I mean, that was the intention of the commissioners, was the funders. They're all a creative scene. They are very much about trying to, I think, involve ordinary people in the arts in some way. And, what that usually means is that you identify groups and you see how, in this case, the arts and rugby can come together in the form of a play. Yeah. And the idea of putting, sport or rugby on stage is not a new one exactly, but how did you approach trying to show a rugby league match on a stage with just 8 actors? It's quite a challenge, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is, yeah. But, that's theatre's all about illusion. And, theatre works best when it's stylised. It's not an artistic media like television. No. And so, I knew before I put pen to paper that I had to talk to the, to the funders about what I needed in order to create this show. So, I said to them, look, I'm going to need a minimum of 8. I'm going to need 8 actors. And in theatre nowadays, that's an expensive show. Yes. So, that's why, not everyone goes there. But, they were great. They agreed, to the 8 actors. So I knew, like I say, you have to know before you put pen to paper, because you've got to structure it. You need to know how many actors you're writing for. It was John Godber did it, of course, in Up and Under as a comic idea of a failing team that was trying to make it. But and that's the usual way of doing these sorts of team games. It's somebody who's not very successful trying to make it. But your model was a real team that's actually very successful, like you said before, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge what has come before you, and obviously I'm aware of John Godber's play, and what I did was I named one of the characters Hazel, because the coach in Up and Under, the female coach, is called Hazel. Yes. And I thought I'll just give a little nod to John Godber's, bit of respect to what's come before, and name that character. But there's a lot of fun in it, but it's not a straight comedy. Yeah. It does go quite deep in terms of exploring the characters' lives, and the problems that they're facing growing up in Batley, and the obstacles that they have to, because you see it in their lives. I went. You can see with the girls that rugby is they're use this phrase, the second family. And it's very genuine. You know, when I spent time with them and their families on tour, they were very welcoming with me, and and I was able to get to know them well in those circumstances. And it's true. You know, the rugby league community is like a second family to these young women.
Yeah. The big triumph, I suppose, in the real story was a trip to Australia, which is quite a perk for a playwright, but I'm sure it is for a young team as well. So, what was that like then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I love my jobs. Especially when things like that fall into place. It just so happened, they were organising a tour to Australia, and I was asked if I wanted to go along as part of the research. I mean, they were very excited about that, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Craig, the coach, is a fantastic coach, and he's not just a great rugby coach, he's also an extremely empathetic sort of person in terms of the pastoral care that he gives the girls is fantastic.
Yeah.
And, he knew that, going to Australia, they were going to play teams who were better than them. Yeah. Because here, they don't really get challenged in the same way. And, he knew the only way they're going to get stronger as a team is to play teams who would beat them, and they could learn from that. Yeah. That's what happened. They played 4 games, but they did win one of them. And because, girls' rugby is more advanced in Australia, they have academies, and their players are playing rugby every day at school.
Yeah. I mean, you said before that it seems to be an issue at the moment of women's teams in what used to be men-only sports. Did you feel when you were researching and writing this play that we are in a major transition phase with this?
Yeah, I think I think that's part of the reason for writing it, is that these things are being discussed in society, and and theatres and arena where these things can be played out. Yeah. I mean, in my play, I introduce a young Asian girl, a young Muslim girl who joins the club. Now, at the moment, there are no Asian girls playing rugby. Not in this country, but it's going to happen. At some point, it is going to happen. Yeah. And so I'm kind of asking, let's have a look at what if that happened, and what effect would that have on the team? And so, that character becomes a catalyst for what happens within the play. And of course, that's completely fictional. That's when I say the play is inspired by, that's what I mean, is that fact very quickly becomes fiction when you invent characters and you ask questions.
Yes, yeah. I've seen it described in the literature as fun, fast-moving and physical, which I think is a great description of your director, Joyce Branner. So they're just wondering how you two came to be working together on this.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That is Joyce, definitely fantastic. And, she's great to work. And I hadn't worked with her before. We were looking to put the team together, the creative team together, and we did speak to a number of directors, and Joyce was unanimously our favourite.
Yeah. So what's she been like to work with on this particular one?
She's been great because she's very skillful and she's very meticulous, and from a playwright's point of view, she's very sensitive to including me in those discussions. Where any changes are required. That she consults me and. And that's great.
Yeah, because she's a writer herself, of course, as well as a director, so I suppose that helps.
And a performer,
And a performer, yes.
A performer as well, yeah.
And this is written in verse and prose with rap and music, so...
Yeah, it is.
You've a few different styles there. How do you keep it all unified together as one play?
Well, I use a lot of verse in theatre, and sometimes I'll write a show entirely in verse, and other times I'll write a show in prose, and then a lot of the time I find mixing the two is what serves the subject matter best. So, verse comes into its own in this play with the sort of epic nature of the story. Yeah. And gives you a sense of that, and then the prose comes in terms of the ordinariness and the everyday family lives of the girls.
Yeah, pretty much as Shakespeare used it then, really.
Well, that's very nice of you to say that, to use us both in the same sentence. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, but if it worked for him to mix different styles like that, then there's no reason why it couldn't work for anybody else, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But this is one of many plays that you've got opening at the moment. Another one is The Shed Crew, which, according to the publicity, takes us back to the techno-thumping 1990s and the rave scene. So not the first time. You've actually visited this back in the 1990s at, I think it was the Contact.
You've done your research.
Well, I remember, actually. I remember seeing your name attached to the Contact back in those days, yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I wrote the first theatre play about the rave scene.
Yeah, and now 25 years later, with 25 years of hindsight, how's it changed your outlook to that scene?
Yeah, of course it does. In that at the time, it was a brand new and very exciting, and the piece I wrote, for Contact was very unapologetic, about that scene. And as with all youth cultures, there are casualties in time. As that there are those who can make a scene work for them and, are better people for it. And, there are those who are damaged by it. And, I'm very much aware of that. And, revisiting those times, in this play, that is very much there in Shed Crew. Yeah. The fact that, some people gain strength through adversity and others go under,
Yeah, and this is actually an adaptation of a memoir, Urban Grimshaw and the Shed Crew. So what's the story of this play?
Yeah, Bernard Hare wrote Urban Grimshaw and the Shed Crew, as you say, which was a very successful true story book. And, Bernie found himself like the token adult with these feral kids in Leeds. And was brought into their world, literally brought into the Shed Crew where they used to meet. Yeah. And he tells that story, warts and all, with a brutal honesty and but also with real compassion. And I've met Bernie, and we get on very well, and it's a great source material. For me, what I did was, when I'd read it and met Bernie, I said to him, look, I says, what I want to do is I want to take this book and I want to turn the whole thing into verse, because for me, that's the way that you capture the energy of youth and of these group of feral kids. It's the same reason why I wrote XSXS in the 90s, in 92, in verse, because it seemed to me the best way that text could capture that energy. Yeah. And so this show, like XS, starts at a very fast pace and it doesn't give up. It's a very fast ride from start to finish. And what happens with the verse is that it underpins the whole thing. So it provides you with a structure where you feel that this energy, this driving force, is always there throughout the piece. Right.
So like the music at the time, then, it's that constant driving beat.
Yeah, absolutely, in keeping with that. Yes. Yeah.
And you said of the book that it's not about how we go marching in and help. It's what we can take from these kids and their experiences. There's a lot in the Shed Crew for the rest of us to learn. So what is it you want audiences to take away from this?
Well, obviously you'll have to come and see the show for that. But, there is a survival, that it's a bit like when I went to the slums in Nairobi for another play that I wrote, Obama the Mamba. And you're very aware of the resilience of human beings in very difficult situations, and the ways in which people find ways in which to survive. Yeah. And that doesn't mean to say that they all survive, because they don't. That's the reality of it. Yeah. Is that, there are definite casualties to this. But those who come through it, I always feel, that they've showed me things about the human condition that I can learn from, that I can apply to my life, and, ways in which you can, I suppose, deal with your own suffering and your own troubles.
Yeah. So how do you get the balance? You must be able to get the balance between telling stories that you think are important of people who should be heard, and then there's the danger of it being, as some theatres have done in the past, it's sort of like class tourism for middle-class theatre goers. So you've got to find a balance there, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about that in rehearsals, is that we definitely didn't want it to be voyeuristic in that way, and but the book isn't, and that's what we would hope to achieve. But I think if you're sensitive to the material, and this really came to the fore with Lee's death, the real Urban Grimshaw, Lee, died, while just before we were about to rehearse this, and so I said to Red Ladder that, look, I feel like I can't ignore this. This is the reality of what happens to people, and is what the book's about. And so they agreed that I should look at rewriting the beginning and the end of the play in the light of Lee's death, to respect Lee's life, and and to not shy away from his death is the best way to respect his life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's the staging of it. It's actually staged to complete this rave theme. It's been staged in a warehouse as an immersive piece. So how do you approach? You've written for many different types of staging and venues, but how do you approach writing specifically for this type of approach?
Yeah, I mean, normally, I would know from the beginning that we were going to write for a specific site, and I would take that into consideration when I wrote the piece. That wasn't the case with how this came about. But when I sat down with Rod, the artistic director of Red Ladder, and we spoke about, what the piece that I'd written and whether it was a play that lent itself to being produced in a theatre or a non-theatre space. Yeah. We both agreed that actually a non-theatre space is preferable for what I'd written. So he's thinking about the production and how it best serves the script. Yeah. And I think he's made the right decision that let's get out of the theatre and let's get into somewhere like a warehouse, which is ideal, I think, for this. But the reason for that, I think, as well, is that, when you come to see this show, it's quite an immersive experience in that, you will find yourself in the world of the shed crew.
Yeah.
And that will help you as a member of the audience empathise with this group of kids and feel like you're caught up in their story. So, we're involving a community cast as well as a decision that we've made. I've written it for a cast of 8 again, but, we both sort of agreed that, it would be exciting to bring in, because there's chorus in the piece, because, when I write in verse, it usually makes sense for your ensemble to speak as a chorus at times.
Yes. Yeah.
So that, they're very much a group where that reinforces the shed crew. The shed crew is the chorus, and then they break out into individual characters. And so if we involve community actors within that, they're part of the chorus, they're part of the shed crew, and that helps the audience, I think, feel that they're caught up, because all around them they don't quite know who's a shed crew member and who isn't. Right. So you feel that you're caught up in their world. It's all happening all around you.
Yeah.
All around you.
Yeah. So the story sort of coming out of the audience as well, in a sense.
Yeah. And it's a very lead story. I mean, it could be played anywhere, but it came from inner city Leeds, and that's the right place to do it.
Yeah. You mentioned the idea of the Greek chorus, but looking back over your work, it must rival some of the ancient Greek playwrights. You've written to commission more than 50 plays, 10 collections of poetry have been published, you've done radio plays, you've storylined for Coronation Street. Now, looking back, that's quite an impressive body of work, really, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I've been, in this 30 years now, sort of, as my job. And so, but, you know what it's like. That's the nature of being a contemporary playwright for the theatre. Yeah. Is one, you have to be prolific, and I'm prolific, and two, you have to be versatile. Yeah. And I'm versatile. By that, I mean you have to be able to write for lots of different types of theatre. And, I love it all, So, if I'm asked to write a site-specific show, bring it on. A community play, bring it on. Play for young people, a touring play, a one-man show. I love the whole breadth of it. And I've learned, how to write different types of theatre, So I think that, puts me in a position where, if someone says to me, can you write me a play about this, and it needs to be, this is the spec for it, we need 40-foot wobbly puppets, and it needs to happen on 2 football fields, then, okay, I can do that. I know how to do that. The quality of my working life is really high because, I write original drama and I go from one to another. Commission, and each one is I just know is going to be an adventure all of its own. And they are, that's how I see it, and I don't take that for granted. That suits me for one thing. I mean, if I found that what suited me was to be a soap writer, let's say, I'd be a soap writer, and and I'd earn a lot more money. Yes, and I'd play to my strengths. I think you have to find where you are as a writer on the spectrum. Theatre's such an old art form that it interests me, immensely, sort of, and I love theatre. So, being able to work as a single playwright in theatre is ideal, and I love it as much as I did, when I first started out. Yeah. And no one in theatre's ever said to me, "You can't say that, you can't write that." And in other media they do. Yeah. In TV, they say that a lot, and also a lot of things get commissioned and don't get made, and I find that really frustrating. I've had that in the past, and in theatre we can't afford to do that. No, and we're too conscious of the art form, I think, and the need to, to honour that and get it right. So, when someone says they're going to do a show in theatre, by and large we do it. Yes, yeah. So plays get made. I write something, it gets made. Yeah.
Another feature of your writing, well, not exclusively, but you've written a lot for and about young people for at least 30 years now. So does it get more difficult to write characters of teenagers to get into their heads as you get older, or does that add something?
Well, when I got the commission for the Ruck, I thought, okay, what have we got here? We've got a play about rugby league. I know nothing about rugby league. We've got a play about Batley. Yeah. I don't know anything about Batley. And we've got a play about teenage girls. And I probably know even less as I get older about teenage girls. Yeah. So, but hey, that's my job. And the one thing I can do is I know how to empathise. I know how to live and breathe a character and imagine you're in their shoes, and that's what it is. That's the kind of headspace that you have to occupy, and after that, it's about what skills do you have to structure a successful show. Yeah, so
a bit of research and then a lot of making it up to link it all together.
Making the right decisions about the structure of the play, and and how it will work. I think, and that I've learned that. I've learned how to structure plays over the years, and so I like to think I'm pretty good at it now. Yeah. But I'm still not frightened, even as I get older. I'm still not frightened about writing about young people, for that reason. Yeah.
Well, we talked about 2 plays you've got opening this month, but you've got lots of other things on the go. What else have we missed that you've got going at the moment?
There are 2 more. I mean, this is quite rare. This doesn't happen to me all the time. But 4 new theatre plays. Yeah, the other 2. One is a play that I'm in rehearsals with at the moment. A play about Bess of Hardwick, which is a one-woman show. Bess was the richest woman in Elizabethan England.
Yeah.
But, she started out as a Derbyshire lass,
Yeah.
So, my Bess is this Derbyshire lass, who kind of somehow manages to duck and dive political intrigues of her time without getting her head chopped off, all around her. People are getting executed. She's personal friend of Mary Queen of Scots, who her and her fourth husband had to keep under house arrest for 15 years. So she's got the ear of Mary Queen of Scots, and then she's lady in waiting to Queen Elizabeth I, and is a personal favourite of Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So she's right there in between these two queens.
Yes.
And her story largely has gone under the radar. And because she's from, the area where I grew up and now live again, it's a story that, when it came to me, that I really wanted to write. So yeah, Bess of Ardwick is on, Bess the Commoner Queen is what we've called it, and that's on at the Guildhall Theatre in Derby at the end of this month.
Right.
And then the other one is a site-specific community play called Down the Line at Barrow Hill Roundhouse Railway Centre. So Barrow Hill Roundhouse is the only railway museum in the country that has an operational turntable, a revolve, as we call it in theatre.
Yes.
I got the offer to write a play for that site, and in the show we've got the Flying Scotsman.
Oh.
Which, that's a real coup de theatre.
Yes.
There's only many shows up and down the country that have got the Flying Scotsman in the show. So once I knew they could get it, I said, right, I'm going to write it into the show. So it's very exciting, and writing a show for a site like that, where there's real trains and and your set is constructed from train carriages, and these things have to be big scale, they have to be large scale,
Yes,
so there's a brass band and a community choir, and a large cast, and so great stuff though.
Yeah. The Ruck opens on the main stage at the Lawrence Batley Theatre in Huddersfield on the 15th of September 2017, before touring to Theatre Royal Wakefield, Cast in Doncaster and The Civic Barnsley. The Shed Crew runs at Albion Electric Warehouse in Leeds from the 21st of September to the 1st of October. Bess the Commoner Queen is at Guildhall Theatre in Derby from the 28th of September to the 1st of October, and Down the Line is at Barrow Hill Roundhouse from the 21st to the 23rd of September. You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.